Okay. We're going to remove a flake from this face. Okay. Using my brayer to brush the edge and remove some smaller flakes there. Take another one from this face where there's this hump right here. Alright, this face is starting to clean up real nicely. Bringing the tip in a little. Take us another little flake next to that one. Not a big one, just want to clean up that cavity next to it and re-establish that ridge so that it's straight. So now we've got this little problem here, right? I'm not going to hit on this because it's just going to step on me or cause it, a problem with my balance. So what I can do is take either my bopper or a hammerstone, and I can pinch the edge and I can just kind of do those brushing down. And what that did is it created a bit of a platform right there. Now I still have to hold the edge when I hit it, but we got a nice flick there. Another one next to it. Another little one next to it. Take another little one. Switch my billet here. Straighten out the edges now that we've got a uniform piece. Remove flakes where we can. So when you're napping and these edges get really thin because you keep removing flakes, it's important to take these little, what you could call either, depending on your, just basically these small flakes to strengthen the edge. And sometimes those flakes can be used to blend other, the other flakes into each other if you're going for a nice pattern. And, sometimes if I were not filming this, I might go a little slower, take my time, but I'm starting to really want to see like my profile because it's getting thin and I want to put a nice pattern on it, so I'm gonna make it look like the point that I want to make. So I'm gonna put a bit of a point on it now. And I'm not trying to remove any heavy flakes, I'm just trying to get a nice profile going and some symmetry. I find it's pretty important to establish your symmetry, sooner rather than later, because what'll happen is all of a sudden you'll have a really thin piece, and then when you go to bring one side in to make it symmetrical because you weren't paying attention, you annihilate your nice flakes that you put on there. And then your piece looks really weird and messed up. So I think it's better to get some symmetry down so that you can pattern it nicely and that you have a better idea of what your finished piece is going to look like. And a lot of times as a beginner, even like some of the advanced nappers, not all nappers are going into attacking a rock with like a game plan in mind or an end product in mind. Sometimes you just want to practice and you just want to take the flakes that present themselves and just work on thinning, work on taking nice flakes. And then when you start to get thin and you naturally continue profiling, then you can start thinking about point types, and eventually you'll get tired of making the same triangle over and over again. And then you might want to consider getting a book or Overstreet Guide or looking online and looking into some point types that maybe are local to your area or ones that you like, and start making some of those. Or whatever, if you're into making big blades and you want to start doing that, get some bigger rocks, start making some bigger blades, things like that. I think it's good to challenge yourself. And oftentimes, like, doing recreating points will definitely challenge you. And I would encourage you, if you're going to get into a particular point type, like making a lot of Clovises or agate basin or Hasket or you know, lost lay, anything like hardened, stuff like that. Seems like people get really into making andesite points. Get some casts, you know. There's, ooh, got a flake in my eye. Whatever. Okay, gonna keep napping. I just wake up and they kind of like go into the crust of my eye, or not into my eyeball itself. I mean, obviously, if it was painful or I could feel it, then I would make an attempt to get it out, but usually just not blinking too much and quickly going and flushing it with water will usually do the trick. But wearing eye protection in the first place is the best way to go. Okay, so we're starting to get a pretty distinct shape on this thing, and I see there's some mass here in the middle, which is okay, but I'm going to start thinking about my pattern now. Okay, so I'm going to switch to an even smaller bopper, and I'm going to start thinking about my pattern and getting this thing nice and consistent. And these boppers I made myself, and they're really easy to make. You can use like tire irons, or basically like not tire weights. You know, just go to any place where they change tires out, and or like a tire shop, and just ask them for some tire weights. Offer them a little money if they're reluctant. You only need, you know, you don't need very many. If you're making a set of like 3 or 4 boppers, you know, 5 or so tire weights will do the job. I prefer my boppers to be lighter than heavier, just because if I'm going to use something heavy, I'm going to use a solid bopper. Having a lighter one can, usually your swing speed has to be quicker, but you just match it to your style. But you don't need to get a die or anything. You just take a copper cap, you know, carve a stick, a hardwood stick, oak or something nice and round, take a ball peen hammer, jam the stick in something hard like a rock, and just gently tap around the edges, and not gently, hit the edges and get the thing nice and round, and you know, you'll get a couple of boppers. I made a few, you know, these 3 sizes, and I used manzanita for the handle, which is a nice local hardwood. And if you really want them to last forever, you can seal it. I just use some wood glue. You can use epoxy, whatever you want. But basically, you just need a torch to melt the iron or the tungsten or lead in the cap. And then once you've melted it on there, you can cover your handle, your stick or shaft in glue, and stick it into the cap while the lead is kind of semi-soft in there. Don't burn yourself. And then it'll glue and heat together, and that's a good way to go. We're already at 8 minutes, so I'll probably wrap this one up soon now that we have a nice biface. I do prefer abo, I would say. It's more rewarding to me with the challenge at this point, but you know, I think that if you're just napping for yourself, it doesn't really matter what tools you're using. But if you're selling stuff and you're doing replications, then you kind of want to try and use the tools of the piece you're trying to replicate. Anyways, see you later, guys.